Hello, I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times, back on Thursday, June 25th, after a couple of weeks of vacation with some news on a momentous day. The United States Supreme Court today ruled 6-3 that subsidies provided for health insurance exchanges and federally run exchanges in the states are legal. They are not prohibited by what was nothing more than really an error in drafting in the Affordable Care Act, which has become known as Obamacare. This was a great victory for the Obama administration. It assures continued health coverage for more than 6 million people, including some 60,000 in Arkansas. It has implications, even though it doesn't directly apply to the Medicaid expansion under Obamacare that's brought health insurance coverage to 250,000 people in Arkansas. But the continuation of that program certainly would have been complicated had the Supreme Court said that this one essential part of Obamacare was no longer legal. So that was big news for the Obama administration. Governor Asa Hutchinson and all the other Republican politicians in Arkansas decried the ruling, said that the court was interpreting and making law rather than simply enforcing the law. That's not really true. Everybody knew that this law was meant to provide subsidies in every state, and there was just a drafting error, but the drafting error gave people a leg up to at least make the argument that the plain language of the law said something else. That was done away with. I think Obamacare is the law of the land. It seems to be likely to be with us for a long time, as the president said today. Now we'll learn to deal with it. It could be improved. Perhaps we'll make it better instead of just continuing to try to fight it. The other news today was a lack of news on the same-sex marriage front. Neither the U.S. Supreme Court or the Arkansas Supreme Court included that case in decisions issued today. In the case of the Arkansas Supreme Court, it was the final issuance of regular opinions before their 6-week summer recess. However, a spokesman for the court said they could issue a ruling in the marriage case at any time, didn't say when, where, or how. The Arkansas Supreme Court is simply defaulting on this issue. Are they putting off a decision in hopes that the U.S. Supreme Court will give them cover for a decision upholding the law? Is it true, as some speculation has it, that votes have changed on the Supreme Court in part because of new membership, and that a majority actually favors running against the tide of history and saying that same-sex people are not entitled to be married, that those 500 people who were married have worthless marriage certificates, and that people who are married in other states legally are not entitled to the benefits of married couples that others in Arkansas receive? Remains to be seen. A great deal of mystery and a great deal of paranoia and conspiracy theories surround the Arkansas Supreme Court these days. They've certainly harmed their reputation, at least among people who follow the court, and that's too bad. One other important case from the U.S. Supreme Court today, a civil rights case involving fair housing law, and basically upheld efforts to enforce fair housing policies that don't necessarily, in the case of lawsuits against people who have had practices that have discriminated in effect, although they might not have intentionally discriminated. This could be of interest in Arkansas because discrimination, statistical discrimination, for example, against prospective black tenants has long been an issue in Arkansas. We have a terrible landlord-tenant law. Any support for fair housing laws at the federal level certainly will be some good news for Arkansas tenants who need it. Elsewhere in Arkansas, I took note today on the Arkansas blog of the Republican leadership's interest in the free lunch. We heard Jason Rapert this week complaining about something needed to be done about levees that have broken and flooded his land. I don't think he means paying more money from taxpayers to pay for those things, or assessing money on the people whose land's protected to build those levees. We want good levees, but we don't always want to pay for them. Same thing with highways. Asa Hutchinson says he hopes his task force will come up with something creative to deal with the problem that Arkansas doesn't have enough money to keep its road building program at the level it would like to keep it. We could raise taxes, or we could cut other services. It's really a very simple prospect. He seems to think perhaps there's magic money somewhere. We are giving away a lot of money in corporate welfare to private companies in the hopes of creating jobs that will somehow trickle down in benefits. Great column I noted today on the blog in the New York Times about states that are trying the same thing with very mixed results. Corporate giveaways help the private businesses. They don't help taxpayers much, is what the facts show. Mike Huckabee, the presidential candidate, gets ripped by the Washington Post fact-checking organization for some typically outlandish comments on global warming. He claims that back when he was in college, they were saying an ice age was just about upon us. Well, no, not really, and there's an abundant amount of evidence that man is contributing to climate change problems. Mike Huckabee rates 4 Pinocchios. That's not good in the fact-checking business if you're counting. Tom Cotton's in the news, wrote a personal profile for Politico about what he learned in war, about leadership and courage. He says, you know, it's sometimes hard to do right and easy to do wrong. he doesn't deal with the issues that I think that some people think the easy wrong and the hard right are two different things, depending on your point of view. Read it and see. Other good reading on the Arkansas Times, Ernie Dumas's great column this week on the power of symbols, Confederate flags and holidays in honor of Confederate generals. It's time, as he has indicated, and Benji Hardy did in a powerful post on our blog while I was gone, it's time to do something about the Robert E. Lee holiday. This was not passed as a tribute to a great man. It was a signal of defiance, just as a Confederate flag is, and it's time to strip at least official observance of these things and put them into the history museums where they belong. And finally, another recommended reading for you. Check our cover story this week on private lives. First-person accounts by a policeman who killed somebody in the line of duty, a country club employee, a Starbucks barista, a manicurist, the tales of what it's like to be in these jobs that you might not think about the people who do them and what they see and what they hear and what they think about what they do. Good stuff. I'm glad to be back, and I'll be back here tomorrow. I'm Max Brantley.